By the time I was 3 years of age, I was devouring the classics. Descartes, Kant, Davis. Each tome had a distinct flavor. My favorite was Davis. It reminded me of a lovely pasta dish my mother created for me upon learning of the passing of my grandfather at age 2 3/4. But alas, I must digress from such a topic, for it is upon these pages I write the discovery that changed the world. On the fateful day of the discovery, I had not voided for several days. My parents, concerned that consumption of glue and paper could have caused a blockage in my bowels, took me to my pediatrician, Dr. Timpson. It is quite ironic that at the time many ideas to solve my predicament dashed through my temple, but I had yet the vocabulary to announce such endeavors. In hindsight, I do wish I had the faculties to speak, for self-discovery is always more rewarding than being given the answer. While waiting on my doctor to examine me, I proceeded to devour every magazine in the waiting room. They sent me into a stupor from which I did not awake until I felt the cold hands of Dr. Timpson upon my upper appendages. I had been dreaming of discourse with the greats of modern physics. This rude awakening confounded me, causing me to weep. "I'm sorry, little guy," spoke Dr. Timpson in a baby voice, one which I had always derided as immature and childish. "I had to wake you up so we can find out why you can't go poopies." Bah! A Morton voids. A Morton has a bowel movement. A Morton does not. Poopies. Such vulgar language only proceeded to upset me further. As I felt my father to be uncaring when cutting up my chicken nuggets, I reached for my mother as a sign that we must leave at once. However, she was unable to appreciate the immense stress and pressure I was under. She rubbed my back and said, "Don't worry, Ben. It's okay." Dr. Timpson, of no important or useless profession as Dr. Child Abuser, used metal and wooden implements to examine cavities in my head. As a doctor, she should be well aware where feces evacuates my personage, yet she ended her examination without even a glance at the orifice from which it comes. Placing her implements into their proper place and washing her hands, Dr. Timpson sat on a stool. Having never seen such a device, I found it amusing that it had no back. I allowed myself to let out a guffaw. The doctor heard this utterance and spun in place, giving me such a hearty guffaw I fell over. It would seem the good doctor found her true calling, as a jester to be laughed at. Alas, life cannot be all frivolities and diversions, so the questioning of my parents begun. "How long has he been eating books and magazines?" Dr. Timpson asked. Even I did not know. Such a length of time would be impossible for any person to fathom. "It started a few weeks ago," answered my mother. "He took the pokey little puppy out of my hand and ate it up right there and then. Just a few bites." "He ate my gardening book that same day," said my father. "Now he speaks? I shall have a word with him, as he refuses to debate me in matters of philosophy, preferring to blow on my stomach instead." Dr. Timpson didn't answer. She made a noise with her mouse and wrote down the pertinent information. The nurse said he ate all the magazines in the waiting room. Is that right?" Dr. Timpson asked. Yes, my parents said in unison. My father followed up with more pertinent information. He fell asleep after eating all of them." "That's interesting," Dr. Timpson said. "I put those magazines out there because they're so boring they act as a mild anesthetic." Dr. Timpson chewed on her pen. "He's just constipated. Any over-the-counter child laxative will work. However, I think I have an explanation of why he keeps eating books." She reached into her medical cabinet and revealed the thickest tome I had ever laid eyes on. My tongue instinctively licked to my lips as I imagined the thick pages sliding down my gullet, each page filling my stomach, the taste of each word dancing on my tongue. She gave me the tome, and I hurriedly devoured each page. Ah, what a wonderful feeling. Something I had never felt before. I had words. But now I had meaning to go with these words. Partway through devouring it, I discovered what it was. A dictionary. A tome that holds the definition of all words. I slurped up each page in delight, each new word expanding my vocabulary, telling me how to pronounce each one. I could finally announce my ideas to the world. My parents and doctor watched as I devoured every last page. I licked the remaining dust off my fingers. "Did you like that?" asked Dr. Timpson. I coughed into my hand, a dreadful habit I picked up when I did not have a handkerchief. "It was quite a delectable treat, Dr. Timpson." "I thank you for allowing me to ingest your dictionary, which has given meaning to all of the words I've eaten. If I were much older, I would propose courtship, for you are the most wonderful female I have ever met." My father pointed at me, mouth agape. What was that?" Dr. Timpson slapped her medical table. "That's one of my crackpot theories finally being proved right. Eating books give you knowledge." Within my father and mother's eyes, I could still see the clouds of doubt and confusion. "Mother, father, allow me to explain. For an as yet unexplained reason, whenever I eat tomes, or books as the lesser minds say, I gain the knowledge held therein. The books I had hitherto eaten gave me knowledge, but not the understanding to use them. It was not until Dr. Timpson gifted me the dictionary that I was able to map the lexicon of the English vernacular into an understanding in my mind. I can go on further, but I fear this has already become a monologue and do not wish to bore you." Placing her hand over her mouth, Dr. Timpson gasped, "Ben, have you eaten a thesaurus?" I nodded in agreement with her statement. "Yes, m'lady. It was one of the first tomes I ate." The doctor was tense. She wished to speak, but could not find the courage to do so. It is common for young female doctors to come across this predicament, and in my devourings I learned to do nothing and let them come about on their own accord. I'm glad I had this knowledge, as she self-affirmed and said, "I'm so sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Morton." My mother, always the worrier and the crier, sobbed despite not understanding what she was sobbing about. "What's wrong with my baby?" Dr. Timpson gave my mother a hug. This was quite unorthodox, but I did not feel it my place to note the inappropriateness of such physical contact. I would report it anonymously later. It seemed as though my mother's tears were infectious as my father cried and Dr. Timpson cried. They cried together, leaving me with not an idea of what was occurring. Dr. Timpson rubbed my back and said, "Your son will be an insufferable douchebag for the rest of his life."